Yo guys, I'm gonna be looking at 4 games that I'm looking forward to later this year in 2024 or 2025, which is when their release or their early access is planned. The 4 games I'm gonna be looking at are Kingmakers, Slay the Spire 2, Heroes of Might and Magic Olden Era, and Sunderfolk. Want to look at some things like what other games have these studios made, when is it coming out, and some gameplay and announcement trailers as well. So to begin with, let's go take a look at Kingmakers. Here's the Kingmakers announcement trailer. I've seen this trailer before.
I don't know where he came from, but I'll tell you, he built our village into a city. He's the one who trained our army, who grew us into an empire. I don't know where he's from, but if you think you can stop him, you're already dead.
This is so fucking funny, man. I love it. It doesn't have to be realistic, it just has to be fun. That's what games are about, right? It's so sick, actually. Look, this looks like RTS.
He gave our people a future. I hope he can save his own.
This is where he's from. So that's where he's actually from. So you see this, you think it's a fantasy game. Actually, it's a science fiction game. It's about a guy that travels back in time. Kingmakers is an up-and-coming action strategy sandbox game developed by Redemption Road Games and published by Tiny Build. It's set in medieval Great Britain, 1400 AD, so 600 years ago. They say it's transported back 500. Isn't it 600 years back? I mean, what year are we living in? But here's the interesting part. It's a third-person sandbox game with action and strategy elements. Genre here listed as RTS, but it's really both. It's a third-person shooter, and it's a real-time strategy game. So the player can switch between a third-person shooter mode and a top-down strategy mode. In the shooter mode, you use modern weapons and vehicles like assault rifles, shotguns, grenade launchers, armored cars, helicopters to fight against medieval enemies. But in strategy mode, you can command your own army of medieval units like cavalry, archers, and swordsmen. That's like a genre that has not really taken off in the past. There is a game, maybe a decade ago. What was it called again? Savage the Natural Selection. Natural Selection 1 and 2 and Savage 1 and 2. So this is something that has been tried before, but I've personally never played it. So I think that's a really interesting concept. So I wonder, what other experience do these developers have? I found this little post here from 8 months ago. The game devs and founders of Redemption Road confirmed Steam Deck support for their announced game, Kingmakers. It's set up in a sci-fi scenario. To prevent an unfortunate future, you travel back to the medieval era and you have to fight masses of knights and hordes of fighters. Usually the CPU is overburdened to calculate the animation of thousands of fighters, so they use vertex animations, which are calculated on the GPU instead. There are 4 founders of Road Redemption, they're all game developers, and they're looking to support Steam Deck. Now, when is this coming out? Early access planned this year, release date 2024. It's not available yet. They say it's similar to Squad, which is of course a shooter that I've played a bit. Conquer the past, save the future. Travel back 500 years. So I didn't see them having made any other games. When I click on developer at Steam, no other games are listed for them. They do say some results may be excluded based on my content preferences, but I doubt that they made some kind of sexual game that I have filtered on Steam for, so that I don't have a repeat of the sexy vampires gaffe that I made some years ago. I didn't even know that there is pornographic material on Steam, and so I very confidently searched for anything, thinking at most there will be some cleavage, but there was more. So I turned on the mature filter, but yeah, there's no games here. There's no games here, so yeah, maybe they made other games under other names. I couldn't find anything, so I don't know with no experience how well they're going to be making Kingmakers, but so far it looked really good, and I'm looking forward to it. Next game, I think most of you will know about this project. Slay the Spire 2. I don't know if these are final graphics. I really doubt they are. Original Slay the Spire also had beta graphics and then finalized graphics. Slay the Spire, of course, is a game that I've played a lot. 287 hours on record and another 250 hours on phone. So I'm a over 500 hour Andy for Slay the Spire. Love this game. Inspired thousands of other games in the same genre. And looks like they are gonna be coming up with some new classes like the Necrobinder. They've got the Silent reprised again, but I saw no mention of Defect or the Watcher. Which in the case of the Watcher, I say good riddance. But Defect was pretty cool. Here's Ironclad again. So we got 2 reprisals of former classes and at least 1 new one. And for the rest, I don't know what they're gonna do. We'll look at the reveal trailer for Slay the Spire. But before we do that, let's take a look at the blog post. Actually, let's look at the trailer first, and then we'll look at their blog post. That's my favorite class, the Silent. Ironclad and Necrobinder. Early access 2025. If we're very lucky, it's early 2025. Hello again. It's the whale versus the spire again. Cool. So there's a couple of newsletter. The newsletter. Nice. September 2024. New month, new newsletter. All of us at Megacrit are hard at work on Slay the Spire 2. We figured we'd start shifting these posts towards news about the game. Most of the team is hard at work at making the game better, while I slack off and write this announcement. Speaking of announcements, we're working on something called a gameplay trailer. Do you guys know what that is? Hopefully we'll be able to show it off later this year, but if not, I apologize. Trailer making is not really our forte, but we've enlisted some help to make sure that everyone gets to see a lot of exciting gameplay soon enough. In the development department, we've been running private playtests for about 4 months now, and the game has been ported to Godot and stabilized. Currently, our core focus is on adding more content, so the game is packed full of interesting enemies, choices, and the silliest of situations. In parallel, we've been improving performance and increasing compatibility on a wide range of devices. We have high confidence we'll be entering early access with PC, Mac OS, Steam Deck, compatible build. Yes, and Linux is also likely. We see you. There are no current plans for Slay the Spire 2 to run on VR, XR, AR. Wait, no augmented reality Slay the Spire 2? No virtual reality? What is XR? Or any other R-ending piece of hardware on early access launch? I'm sure nobody's surprised by this news, but that's okay. Extended reality. Extra. Why a sequel? So this is a question we get often, and I'm happy to answer. Why are you working on a sequel? Why not Slay the Spire expansion instead? For those not in the know, the first Slay the Spire was developed over 2.5 years before we hit early access. Myself, Casey, Jano, and Anthony were programming, designing, and arting, which is the official term for making art in video games, by the way. We enlisted the help from a handful of contractors to polish up the rough edges and hide some of our shortcomings. This was done by various illustrators, animators, trailer editors, and of course our composer Clark About, who has been with us the whole way and now Slay the Spire 2. It's difficult to fully explain how quickly and chaotically we scrapped together Slay the Spire. There's no guarantee for any indie game with no reputation to sell more than 10,000 copies. Spending time writing clean, editable and maintainable code for such a project seemed foolish. Commented code was sparse, issues were hastily patched, systems were cut or completely redone often. This happens in games with exploratory game mechanics, big shocker. On top of this, only about half my time was spent programming the game, with the rest spent in technical art, QA, my former job, UX design, and writing things like this. Strangely, writing blogs comes the most naturally to me. It's not beautiful prose, but I enjoy the process. With this in mind, I'll fire off some quick bullet points to the why a sequel question. Undoing many of my sins in the codebase, cleaner and more expandable architecture, improving the game's performance so we can add more stuff, migrate it to a higher compatibility game engine, forming and growing a team to avoid working 60 plus hours for 5 years straight. I feel like 60 hours in 5 years isn't that much. How much is that per year? 12? Or do you think he means per week? Giving the game a visual refresh, art and UI. Experimenting with various mechanics, we always wanted to. New stuff. It's only 1 hour per month. This last point, new stuff, is really important. Games aren't a list of game mechanics and features. The design of content, pacing, balance, story beats, unique characters, and various things come together to make a one-of-a-kind experience. Otherwise, there would be no reason to play any sequel ever. I think we all know this intrinsically, yet a lot of players can't seem to accept this. I think skepticism is healthy, but I abhor the cynicism. It's too much. Get a hold of yourself, cynics. I actually feel very strongly in agreement with this. Making a one-of-a-kind experience is the opposite. This is the embodiment of creativity. It is the risky approach. It is the opposite of iterative, repetitive, similar regurgitated experience where you simply go fast and the furious, bigger, badder, better. A lot of people say Darkest Dungeon 1 and 2 are different, and that and that Frostpunk 1 and 2 are different. And I think a lot of people intrinsically expect for a sequel to be the same as the one before, but just more. And that is a kind of cowardly approach to game design. It's very safe, and it can be exactly what people want. And of course, we're looking to play Slay the Spire 2 because we loved Slay the Spire 1 so much. So I guess we'll see if they can make another unique one-of-a-kind experience that's different, but stands on itself, and is not just better or the same, but is like different as well as 1. Because 1 is still playable. And it's the same for Darkest Dungeon 1 and 2. They're both still playable, like they hold up, right? But it will be interesting to see whether they succeed at making it very unique. The visual refresh is also really important. We're still filling out the backgrounds and haven't incorporated ambient effects, but I would feel remiss not including something. Teaser of a silly feller with an Orby looking head. It's cute. It's hard to make a sequel to a masterpiece like Darkest Dungeon, honestly. If you don't want to make more of the same, just make a game with a different name. That's a good point. If you make a game with the same name, you are essentially promising customers to give a similar experience, similar or better. Yeah, that makes sense. Do note that I'm trying to compress 4 hours of ranting into a handful of paragraphs. For your burning non-spoiler inducing questions, you're always free to ask us questions. So that's their September update. Let's go to the next game. Looking forward to this one a lot. The third game I'm looking at is Heroes of Might and Magic Olden Era. This one is very interesting. Heroes of Might and Magic 2, 3, and 4 are games I played a lot. And the one that is most popular on Twitch now is Heroes of Might and Magic 3. Taking a look at this is a new instance in a long series of Heroes of Might and Magic games, but it is of course not by the same developers as made Heroes of Might and Magic before. The formula for this game is very attractive. It's a fantasy game with strategy, wonderful atmosphere and music, etc. And they will be looking to recapture some of that magic. Will they succeed? Now, I have a lot of hope for this, despite being potentially worried at the large gap between Heroes of Might and Magic Olden Era and the previous game in the series. And even though Heroes of Might and Magic 5, 6, and 7 are beloved by some, for me, I didn't feel like the art style really covered the original feeling of the game that much. They tried to go 3D, and I felt like it wasn't that good to look at anymore. I didn't even give the gameplay that much of a chance. I know 5 is beloved by some, but let's take a look. Here's of Might and Magic 5. Oh, 45. We're not there yet. Here's of Might and Magic 5. It looks fairly well reviewed, 87%. Graphically, to me, this is very strange to see these screenshots. This is not what Heroes of Might and Magic was to me. I don't need this 3D zoom in. It's not good enough looking to be awesome. And it's not clean enough like Heroes of Might and Magic 2, 3, 4. But you guys are saying it was good? It was fun? Yeah. Heroes of Might and Magic 4. Graphically, the world map looks fine. But the fights do not, like... For me, this art style is an immediate, like, turn off. Compared to Heroes of Might and Magic 2 and 3, this is so much worse to me. This is the kind of 3D or isometric that I really just feel like the series didn't need. Not good. Like, it's actually worse looking. The cities are so much worse looking as well. And this is HAM 4. It's supposed to be better looking than 3, but it isn't. So, the series has already disappointed with some of its sequels. So the question is, how true to form will this game be? Well, let's take a look at the trailer and see what we can glean from that. Olden Era, official reveal trailer. The return of a legendary series. A new strategic tale. I think this looks pretty good. Olden Era. Wishlist now. I think this looks pretty good. Graphically. It was a pretty short trailer, but if we take a look at some of the highlights, here's the battlefield. This is classical Heroes of Might and Magic juxtaposition of armies. Fidelity is of course higher than something like 3. We can recognize the characters pretty well. They are kind of, how to say... the posture of the units is a little unnatural. Like a little goofy. Like the Griffin and the Dragon. But I think the effects are very beautiful, and I think it's very acceptably good looking. Let's look at this map, for instance. We see the cube, the Pandora's box. I think there are some contrast problems. I feel like this is probably very, very difficult because many games don't do it as well as some of the older games. There are some things that are really good contrast, like you can clearly see the pile of gems. This blends in a bit more with the background. I don't know, it's something about lighting or shadows, but overall I do think this looks quite good and nice to look at. This one, am I the only one that feels that the middle building in particular looks not placed in the world? I don't know, is it like plastic or paper mache? It looks like it's AI. Yeah. Like, this feels like AI art to me, and I personally don't have a principal problem with AI art when used well. I know this is potentially a very controversial topic in the last few years and coming up. I personally don't have a problem with it, but there's something about it that looks out of place, this middle building. And then when you look here, I feel like it's kind of the same. For instance, this Halls of the Dead that makes the Black Knights looks pretty good to me. The middle one here looks more like plastified AI art again, here in the middle. Something about the lighting. Do I think overall it looks pretty good? Yeah, I think it looks pretty good. I find it acceptable. Like, if the gameplay is good, I think this will be a nice complement to it. This one. I think this one is very important. And there's something else important going on the background. We have music playing right now. There is music playing. We don't know how important this music will be to the game. Is this music also going to be used in battle? Is this, for instance, the official battle music or one of the themes? The music sounds overly hype, like overly active to me, and not chill, like Heroes of Might and Magic 3 was. and the music doesn't sound like that charming to me. It sounds more generic. So I don't know if this music is going to be actually like part of the game or it's just for their trailer. It's just generic trailer hype music that's meant to make your heart rate go up. Now, graphically, what we're seeing here, this, again, I feel like this city looks slightly out of place in the placement. But I only feel that about this city. I also feel like it's too thin, maybe. Too thin. Because when you look at the... I know proportions are not supposed to be accurate here, but it looks like a very thin, small city. And Heroes of Might and Magic 3 looks so charming and good. But overall, the way that the Fog of War unveils itself with the burning parchment, the way that Fog of War looks, I think it's all right. And I think the movements are smooth. And again, I find it acceptably good. These fighting effects, they look pretty cool. Keep in mind that after you play a game like this for a while, you're most likely going to use accelerated animations, which means that this elaborate attack animation isn't going to be that important. It will make a nice showcase in a trailer like this. But those look like pretty slow attack animations, and we're going to be seeing them like this. Because we're going to speed up the fight by 2 times, by 3x, etc. So even though it looks good, you shouldn't let that distract yourself because most likely you're not even going to be seeing it once you play. But I do think they look good. Nice animations. This spellbook actually reminds me very much of the Age of Wonders spellbook. Age of Wonders 4 spells.
I would ponder that it is versatility. To be able to turn any situation to your advantage. To mold your followers. And harness the very terrain of your dominion. To strike allegiances and grow stronger through unity.
Yeah, they don't show the spells here. So yeah, this reminds me of the Age of Wonders 4 spellbook. It also looks similar to HAM 5. Ah. I feel like Age of Wonders 4 looks better from that little trailer comparison, but I'm still very anticipatory. I'm kind of hyped about... Grubby, here's a link if you want. Oh, thank you, yeah. There you go. There it is. Yeah, I mean, a book is similar to a book. No surprise, right? It's a spell book. Yeah, pages, parchment is the same color. Heroes of Might and Magic is being developed by Unfrozen. So, who are Unfrozen? Unfrozen have made another turn-based RPG game called Iratus Lord of the Dead. It's a turn-based tactical roguelike RPG, which is actually most similar, as far as I can tell, to Darkest Dungeon. Iratus Lord of the Dead. This is the only other game that I've seen Unfrozen have made. You can see some screenshots and see the similarities to Darkest Dungeon. So they have experience with RPG games, but perhaps not with games like Heroes of Might and Magic yet. I played that game, it was not bad. Yeah, it's quite well reviewed. 85%, 86% 4 years ago. So that's probably... And then they brought out some expansions for this game. So they've probably been working on Olden Era for, I would imagine, 3 years or something like that. And this game is expected Q2 2025. And it's also going to be starting with a early access period. Q2 2025. I'm looking forward to it. Hoping to try it as soon as possible. Kingmakers is this year, 2024. Slay Spire is also expected 2025. And the last game that I'm going to be looking at is Sunderfolk. Sunderfolk is actually one of the first games. One of the first games that's coming out from the publisher Dreamhaven. Dreamhaven is a game developer and publisher with a deep belief in bringing players together through high-quality experiences. They've got a couple of other games featured already. I have not personally tried them, Linked being one of them. Dreamhaven is a publishing studio for games that is owned by Mike Morhaime, who left Blizzard 4 years ago. And Secret Door has some ex-Blizzard as well, including Chris Sigety, who was involved with the original Warcraft 3 and many other games since, including Heroes of Might and Magic. Including Heroes of the Storm, Warcraft 3, and more. I met Chris Sigety a month ago in Germany to try out Thunderfolk, so I have some personal experience playing this game, and I found it to be incredibly enjoyable. It is a turn-based tactical RPG game where your phone is the controller. Initially, that may make you wary. Phone games. But it's not a phone game, it's a game you get on Steam or PC, and your phone is the controller. This is a typical scenario. This is how I was seated with 3 other players. Around a screen, you play it on a main platform, and on your phone you download a free app where you play Thunderfolk. It's quite an interesting new system to me. Personally, I like it, the idea of that, since, as we know, everybody has phones. Here's the official reveal trailer for the game. So the game can be played alone, but you will need to control 2 characters yourself. So it's kind of like Baldur's Gate 2 or 3, in that you are a party of 4 characters, and then you just play like RPG style. If you play alone, it's not ideal, but it is possible. They've made it possible to do so. And you play as 2 players. You play as 2 characters. Just like in Baldur's Gate, you control multiple characters. So you definitely can. You can play it live together on the couch, but you can also play it over online. So I could play it on stream with other people that are not in my house, to be clear. You'll still be using your phone as a controller though, and you'll be having your own screen at home, and I have my screen and you have your screen at home, and the screen will be showing what is happening. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Chris, and I'm the studio head of Secret Door, one of 2 internal studios at Dreamhaven.
And I'm Erin, the game director, and we are so excited to show you what we've been working on. Thunderfolk is a tactical turn-based RPG that you play with your friends, family, and loved ones.
It's focused on cooperative play in person, and it's really at the heart of what we're trying to do as a studio.
It's focused on in person, but doesn't need to be.
We were, with Thunderfolk, really trying to create something that would inspire people to get together in person. We wanted to feel similar to a game night, getting together to play a board game, or getting together to play D&D with a group of friends or family or loved ones that you really care about, and to share that experience together side by side.
The board game table is something very special, and we want to create a video game that has those same elements. So we focused on this idea of collaborating together. We're using the phone in everyone's pocket.
So it's pretty cool. You just swipe like this, and then you see the equivalent of your phone movement and how your character is going to be moving on screen. And then if you wanna move like that, then you confirm, and if you don't, like, you cancel. And then you can also press this looking glass button here to point at things, like as if a laser pointer on the screen. So you can be like, I think you should move your character to this hex, and then I'm gonna throw you into the enemy. And then you're going to explode with fire, and, then I'm going to walk up and hit them as well, that kind of thing.
As the control interface, and your phone being the controller allows you to have your own information, as well as roll out only the information needed at any given time.
You also have the board space, which is what we kind of describe as the main screen.
Now, technically, I feel like you should also be able to play this without phone. Initially, I think the concept is genius because I'm envisioning 2 scenarios. Like, right, I'm a person and I'm a streamer. As a streamer, I'm thinking, okay, cool, I can still play this online, not gathered around the couch around Christmas playing with friends. As a streamer, can I play this online? Okay, cool. Is this like fun gameplay? Yes. Yes, it is. And it was, right? I had fun playing the game. But I also enjoy like the idea of bringing home like 2 friends, and Cass and 2 friends and I were all playing together, sitting around with our phone, and it's easy because everybody's got a controller, so I don't need to buy like another Nintendo Switch controller or whatever kind of controller as would be required. but shouldn't you also be able to play it on your phone? On your keyboard as a controller? Like, that makes more sense. Their starting point is, what if we took a board game and we allowed everybody to easily set up around the board game, and we allowed everyone to easily onboard onto the board game, since normally you need 1 hour setup to spread out all the board game cards, but now everything is encapsulated inside the game, and they do the rolls of the dice, and everybody's got a phone so you can get started easily. That makes a lot of sense when you approach it from the perspective of, how can we make board games easier? But for many people that don't play board games already, but still like the concept of the game, maybe they should have a controller that's not the phone.
This is the spot that all the shared information will be.
I imagine if they include a keyboard option, people might completely opt out of that phone experience. I think that's what they're afraid of as well, in a sense.
And it is really trying to parallel that experience of, I've got a hand of cards and a board on the ground in front of us. In Thunderfolk,
I do think it was well implemented, the control scheme.
You'll play through a campaign. This is very similar to a D&D campaign, where you're getting back together, playing the same characters, kind of progressing, seeing that story through. You'll pick all of your classes together. We've nailed down a wide range of archetypes.
Those characters are based on some of the traditional types of characters you'd see in a role-playing game. One of my favorite characters is the Berserker, who fills the warrior class. My favorite.
Do you know what the target audience is? Because I don't think I'm part of it. I would say anyone that likes board games, anyone that likes turn-based games, and anyone that likes games like Baldur's Gate 3. So if you're someone that says, I don't like turn-based games, I don't like Baldur's Gate 3, then you're probably not going to enjoy this either, from experience.
Ability on.
You don't have to have friends for it, but it's going to be more fun with people you know, yeah.
Berserker is an ability called Fling, because you can pick up your friends and throw them further into the foray, or take an enemy, for example, and throw them back to your friends to deal with. So even the classes that are designed to be more accessible have depth to them in some really fun and interesting ways.
I think the graphics looks really nice. It was very polished when I played it. There were no bugs. You had a couple of classes. There was one guy, he was a German journalist. He played the polar bear, which is like a barbarian. Cass, my spouse, she was playing a raven that can help displace people, that gathers mana from being around allies, and then as the fight goes on, she'll finally have enough mana to do like a really strong spell. I was a salamander that had a lot of fire, that would do damage to people that walk through the fire, and also I could like jump into people to explode, and then when I walk through the fire, I get bonus auto attack damage. And then there was another character which was a kind of like a stoat, like a weasel, and that was like the typical thief backstabbing type of character that does bonus damage when someone is isolated.
And so you'll kind of pick all of your classes together, and then you'll go into a mission. In the mission, you'll be defeating monsters, collecting gold, achieving objectives that are kind of set forth by you. You're not always just going in and it's like, defeat all the monsters. There's a lot of different opportunities for gameplay elements and trying out different builds. One of my favorite missions is Tower Defense Light. You're defending the gates of the town against an invading force, but the towers are these adorable bugs that are your NPCs. They're helping alongside you. At the very beginning of the mission, you get to name the bugs, and I am so committed to keeping those little guys alive. Once you complete that mission, you and your group will head back to town.
In town, you can.
This is pretty cool. During our test, like you could go to the clothier, you could like change your skin and stuff, and then you could see how your character looks. During the test where we did it, you could only see your character if all 4 people went to the clothier at the same time, which I think they said they're gonna change. And then you could talk to like NPCs and everything. You could like sell things you found. Loot that dropped during missions. You have to pick it up during the battle or after the battle, but if you pick it up after the battle, there's a chance it gets like picked up or stolen by some of the enemy creeps. So there was an incentive to not help your teammates, to instead use your movement points to pick up loot and gold, while your teammates are fighting in mortal danger. And I wish I could say I was the most greedy, steal away in the middle of the night, let my friends die thief. I was trying to be the most greedy, but the others were even greedier, and I ended up with 20 gold, and some of my allies had like 80 or 100 gold.
and head off and kind of do your own agenda. It's really purposefully built as a little bit of a reprieve from the focus of the missions themselves.
You and your friends can kind of go around independently, picking up that next item you need for your build, customize.
Oh, instead of rolling a dice for damage, like a roll of the die, and saying, you know, if you roll a 20, critical hit, roll a 1, it's a critical miss. Instead, you had like positive and negative outcome cards. It would roll between those, but the outcomes were not just binary numbers, or it's like +1 damage because you got lucky, -1 damage. You could sub them in and out like a card game, where you would add like you could like take out a +1 damage modifier card for a good outcome. You could replace it with like gain 1 movement speed next turn, that kind of thing. And you always had to have like 3 negative cards, essentially 3 curses, and like 5 positive outcome cards. And so you could replace some really bad curses with other curses you find along the way, which are like better negative outcome cards. And in this way, you would be building up your luck, essentially. It's pretty interesting. That's like how Gloomhaven damage roll works. Ah, I see.
Using your different decks, talking to different NPCs and townsfolk, building their affinity up. And once all the players are kind of ready to move forward, they'll head out to mission select, where they'll pick their next mission and then kind of deploy back out.
We've found in our own experiences that being around a board game table with loved ones, friends, or family is true togetherness.
Sunderfolk is our way to be able to bridge that gap with folks that you've always wanted to share this passion with.
I want people to play these deeper, richer experiences around the table, but it can be challenging to do that. And so with Sunderfolk, we're trying to go right at the heart of that and get them into some fun as fast as they can.
That's kind of where our mission came from. We're trying to give an entry point for folks already in the community to pull along their friends, their family, their loved ones who want to be part of that community as well. One of the things that I think is most appealing is when you come away from that table with your friends and you have this incredible story that nobody else gets if you try to explain it to them, but to you is such a strong emotional moment. I want Sunderfolk to provide those opportunities too, and I'm excited for players to experience that.
This guy's a dungeon master for sure. Yeah, he is. He's got like hundreds of board games at home.
Togetherness is at the heart of the studio. It's what we're trying to provide to people with the experiences we create, and Sunderfolk is our first step into that.
It's a very collaborative game, so it's really fun to be playing with other folks, working together to overcome these challenges, going on this heroic adventure together, kind of like talking through what the best strategy is. That's the experience that we want you guys to have.
Thank you so much for joining us to learn more about Sunderfolk, and we're so excited to share more in the months ahead.
We appreciate you all listening in, and we're really excited to hear your thoughts.
I think it's really interesting. I did not expect you guys' reaction about phone potentially being a downside. Of course, I know the word phone has been a joke ever since Diablo Immortal. And of course before. I mean, the first time I had criticism in my head regarding phones was in 2009. The World Cyber Games was starting to shift into mobile gaming. Now in 2009, this was a joke. Like, mobile gaming was a complete joke. And now it's a joke for other reasons, because of, you know, gacha mechanics and stuff. Because you could do really good games on phone, but, you know, people are choosing to go for the greedy route. But the point is, it was a big joke back then. It's not a phone game, this, right? But it's a game you play and control with your phone. So to many of you, that's maybe all it will feel like. I showed up there, I think, this is genius. We all have a phone you can control with it. I think it's genius. I think it's a plus. But I think how you guys react is valid too. And if you guys react like this, they're going to be dealing with that as well, potentially. It's interesting. That's interesting. There was also another trailer, which is the gameplay trailer. It's pretty short.
Welcome to Arden.
I don't know how...
An underground haven.
I think it's more of the same,
Your
right?
friends, and assemble a team to...
Oh yeah, we can watch this. This is the narrator of Symmetra from Overwatch, by the way. She's the full narrator of the game.
Welcome to Arden. An underground haven for resilient animals who make their homes under the light of the bright shard. But beyond its brilliance, darkness looms. This is a village in need of heroes. The citizens of Arden call upon you. Gather your friends and assemble a team to fight against the shadows of the Sunderlands.
What's interesting is she does all the voices. So when there's like an old hag at a shop or a young person somewhere else, it's all her voice. Not because they're saving money on multiple actors, but because it is trying to encapsulate the feeling of having a dungeon master or dungeon mistress in this case. And so she's gonna attempt, just like a normal dungeon master would, to embody a wide array of different types and characters and voices and so on. What about the player characters? The player characters are not voiced protagonists, from what I remember. How is the response time for mobile input? Any lag? There was none when I played, but I didn't use my mobile phone. They gave us mobile phone devices to play with. There was no lag. It was super... It felt so natural. Like, that's how I can say it. It was real natural.
Arm yourself and take on a new adventure where your fate is within your hand. Play as a unique character with specialized skills, working together to solve puzzles and battle monsters in the dark caverns. Then return home to improve your village and develop relationships with townsfolk before heading out on another mission. Fine-tune your abilities, customize your build, and blaze a path that is uniquely yours. And when that path winds deep into the gloom of the Sunderlands, you'll light the way together. Gather your party of adventurers and change the fate of the Sunderfolk.
So there you have it.
Rediscover game night.
2025. And these are 4 games I'm looking forward to, and hopefully going to be able to show some or all of them off on stream. Kingmakers, Slay the Spire 2, Heroes of Might and Magic Olden Era, and Sunderfolk. Which one did you guys look forward to the most? Let me know.